All right, so now we have the underlying shapes developed for the object that you've chosen to draw. The next step is to take those geometric shapes, whether it's a circle, a square, a rectangle, or a triangle, or an oval, and turn them into the actual curves and edges of your real object. Those edges and curved lines are called contour lines, and they're the directional changes and the outer edges of the object. It's not just the outer edges, but it's also the edge that separates one part from another part, such as this is a contour line, but also this is a contour line. It's the line that separates this direction from this direction on that bottle. So that's our next step, making it look more believably like the real thing. So with it, we're going to stay with the HB pencil. I'm going to zoom in just a bit here. All right. So we're going to stay with the HB pencil, and you're going to modify the lines that you already have to make it look more like the actual contours. Right? These are just basic shapes at this point. They're not the actual directional lines that the bottle has. There we go. That's a little bit more in the video range. So we're going to be switching them up a bit, and that's why I asked you to use a HB pencil. It's easier to erase, and to keep your lines light, it's easier to erase too. So I'm looking at the actual curves rather than just that straight up and down look. At this point, it looks like a can instead of this bottle. The bottle is more flattened out than rounded, than like a circle, like a can is. So that's part of what we're going to do. So this line already represents the top edge of the bottle, and it's pretty close to what I see, but it actually, that's just the top edge up to about this point. It curves away from it, outside of it just a little bit, this way, comes out of it, and then back in. And I think this is for you to be able to grab onto it a little bit, that little curve that's there at its shoulders, just to make it easier to grasp it. So it comes out of it a little bit and then comes in, and it goes into the body a little bit there. I can see a contour line that comes into it. Now it also, on that same line that was originally there, it comes out of that line on a little farther away from this closer directional change. It comes out a little bit more, probably not as much as I just drew, and then it curves back into its body that way. So it's a little bit more like this. That's an exaggeration, so I'm going to bring it back in just a little bit, right? So it's a little bit of a curve outside of that straight up and down look. Now every time you get a new line put in place for the actual contours, get rid of the lines that were the underlying shapes. So I've got a line here that doesn't belong. So I'm going to erase that, right? Take that line back out. And that's another reason why you want to use a light pencil, and don't press hard with it, so you can make all these changes as you go, so you don't get confused. I'm going to get rid of that line that was a little too far out too. I'm going to just kind of bring that back in. All right, because I've been using a softer pencil, and it smudges more easily than the HB pencil. I use the softer one so you guys can see it in the video. So once again, I'm bringing it just from this curve that was already there, bringing it out a little bit, and then back down and in. And then this one's coming back in, or outward, I mean, away from the shape, but then back in at the foot of it, and it curves into that bottom of the bottle there. Now on this side of it, the opposite side, it does some of the same stuff. It doesn't curve outward as much because of its angle away from me, but it still does curve outwardly just a bit, downwardly, because it's a little closer to me, it's a little bit more downward here at that shoulder, and this line comes back in a little bit lower than that line did too. Now on this side, it meets up right at that shape's edge, but I want to turn it into the contours of the form, the three-dimensional object, and then bring it back down right in about at the foot. So this contour is a little different from that one just because of my angle to the object, right? So it might not look as symmetrically balanced as it would from the front edge and from the way that you might be seeing it. And remember, you want to get rid of the lines that are errant lines when you make these changes, or from the original underlying shapes. So in my case, it was just easier to erase all of that. I have a pretty good idea. I can still see kind of a ghost line of where that new contour line was. That helps to make it look more like the actual outer edges. It does pop out a little bit more like that right there. It's a little bit more curved going back into itself. All right, so you want, like I said, erase and redraw. So you're going to be doing that everywhere. There's that corner that was for the straight up and down shape. It's not straight up and down, right? I don't want that corner, so I get rid of it before it becomes an issue, before I wonder which line am I supposed to be drawing in my picture, right? And I want to get rid of that one too. So that's what you're going to be doing throughout the whole thing. This is going to get curved out. Instead of being a rectangle there, it's going to be more organic looking, more fluid looking. This line is not a solid line. It's going to go away a little bit. Now that I've got a pretty good idea of the structure, I'm going to take it away just a little bit. There is a little bit of it right here that I can see. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a thin, lighter line there. That is a contour line. So contour lines define the outer edges and the inner edges, the parts that separate one thing from another thing on an object. But it also helps to see it a little bit better if they change in darkness and lightness, thickness and thinness. So in some places when we get to our line qualities, we're going to be doing some of that. Some thinner, thicker lines, some darker, lighter lines to help express the motion and movement. One thing I didn't quite do is it does come up a little bit higher right there in this. Now this is a line that I drew there just to make sure that this line met up with that line believably. So it's not really there, right? It's not there on that surface. This is not a square, but it's a cylinder. It's rounded. So I'm going to start a little bit higher and bring that rounded edge against this rounded edge to make it look like the curved cap that it is, rather than a flat shape like the square or the rectangle that I plotted it or blocked it in with. I think I need to work a little bit on that on this edge. And then up here it does the same thing. It's a curved edge, not a square edge, right? So I want to curve it and I get rid of all the underlying shapes, edges, and leave my contour lines. So that's what you're going to be doing with your drawing. The next video you see, I'll show you how to start applying the technical objectives, the thick lines, light lines, the different pencils, blending, hatching, detail, and eraser drawing. I'll be talking about those in the next video.